Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. Got a blizzard warning back in effect here for the St. Lawrence Island area, Bering Strait coast for tonight through tomorrow night, and that's for maybe possibly up to 6 inches of snow, along with northeast winds gusting to 55 miles per hour, again creating blizzard conditions, meaning visibilities to a quarter mile or less at times through tomorrow night. And that same system prompted winter weather advisories here for the Yukon Delta coast, eastern Norton Sound, all the way back to the Nome area. And that's for tonight, 1 to 3 inches of snow, winds gusting to 40 miles per hour there. And then up here to the north, northern Seward Peninsula, Noatak Valley, and the northwest coast. That's due to a system up there currently, and so those advisories for the same conditions are out just for this evening, at which time winds and snow should begin to let up enough, at least by midnight and after, for those advisories to end. Looking at yesterday's satellite imagery, this system here moving northward with some areas of snow. Again today, up in the Kotzebue Sound area, we had another front coming eastward across eastern Aleutians, the Alaska Peninsula, and extending back toward Shemya. Along the southeast coast, swirl here down south of the Queen Charlotte Islands. That brought some moisture up into the southern southeast coast with scattered showers on up to the north. Clouds here over the southeast interior and variable clouds across the eastern interior. For today, we'll see that system has pushed off to the south, but weak upper disturbance things here, keeping some mostly cloudy, keeping skies mostly cloudy, and lingering showers here along areas in the North Gulf Coast from about Yakutat in and over the Panhandle today. But pretty nice here back to the west, Prince William Sound, much of the eastern interior under high pressure, and also south central Alaska. Some areas of low clouds and fog here along Cook Inlet, northern Cook Inlet. Otherwise, some breaks down here around Kodiak Island. Back to the west, got some moisture rotating up to the northwest there with some snow, areas of snow associated with that. And then the old system up here, keeping the snowy conditions and gusty winds up in that area. Again, for those winter weather advisories for tonight, and a very weak band of moisture there into the eastern Arctic coast. There was some light snow. Stronger system here, again, lifting north into the southern Bering Sea today. That brought winds southeast gusting to 62 miles per hour at Cold Bay this afternoon, with rainfall occurring about a half an inch. Fell at Falls Pass today, quarter of an inch picked up by Unalaska, and some good warm air flowing up as well, with St. Paul seeing a temperature of 39 degrees, which broke the previous record set way back in 1979. On the chart today, again, the rainfall spreading over to about southwestern Kodiak Island, but the heavier stuff, western Alaska Peninsula, back up toward the Pribilofs, and then a weak trough heading northwestward there, bringing some snow in across the Yukon Delta. Mixture of rain and snow here in northern Bristol Bay and the Kuskokwim Delta. And this system up here weakening, but keeping some snow going up in that area. A break off to the east here under high pressure, but still some flurries occurred over the central Tanana Valley and mostly off into Canada. Again, a few lingering showers, very weak upper disturbances. Still just to the west of the area there, So that's going to be continuing to slide down the southeast coast tonight and into tomorrow. For tonight, not too bad there. Just again, mostly cloudy skies. Risk of a shower from about Sitka on down to Prince of Wales Island and maybe over toward the Stewart area. Otherwise, dry conditions. Variable clouds to clear skies, North Gulf Coast, Copper River Basin up into the interior areas with, again, some snow continuing there for the southern slopes of the Western Brooks Range. And then that kind of links up with the northward bound moisture here. That low center still hanging back down over the southern Bering Sea, but the front advancing northward and a little bit to the east here. So again, the winds and snow increase Yukon Delta coast up into the Bering Strait areas, with an increase in the winds also over the southwest interior areas, with light rain possibly working into southern Cook Inlet, the southern Kenai Peninsula, and some light rain and drizzle for Kodiak Island. The heavier rainfall back to the west in closer to the main frontal system for the Alaska Peninsula. Scattered showers, eastern Aleutians, and snow or snow showers, gusty west winds, colder temperatures into the central Aleutian areas, and then that scatters back out to isolated snow showers towards Shimia. And for tomorrow, that high kind of moving eastward there into the Yukon, but keeping the eastern interior mostly fair, with light winds and dry conditions for the North Gulf Coast. Just some isolated shower activity hanging on to the southern panhandle there. Otherwise, look for partly to mostly cloudy skies with light winds, patchy areas of fog again. And that same thing here over Cook Inlet once again around Anchorage. Morning low clouds and fog in the morning. Otherwise, down to the south, chance of rain, Homer, Seldovia, possibly Seward. Definitely for Kodiak Island with gusty southeast winds and pretty brisk winds, again gusting to 40 miles an hour here across the southwest interior, but most of the moisture staying down to the south, Bristol Bay, mixed rain and snow, Yukon Delta, or the Kuskokwim Delta there, and to a lesser extent over the Yukon Delta, snow and blowing snow there for St. Lawrence Island into the Bering Strait, and this narrow band of moisture dissipating and moving northward throughout the day onto the western North Slope areas, but staying back to the west, just some patchy fog there along the Arctic coast with light wind conditions up in that area. Back out to the west, those winds will increase again for the Pribilofs after diminishing tonight behind the front. Again, they pick back up tomorrow to 40-45 knots out of the south or southeast with numerous snow showers in that area, scattered snow showers with brisk westerly winds for the eastern Aleutians all the way back out to Kiska. For the Monday forecast, that front pushes inland to about this position, and this area of it weakens considerably. Just look for some areas of light snow or flurries with that front as the main push goes back into Russia. This area wave slides up to Kodiak Island, and the front a little more organized now here in the Gulf of Alaska, and that'll keep rain over the southern Kenai Peninsula area into southern Cook Inlet. Scattered showers there over Kodiak Island, and the gradient could tighten up enough to bring minimum gales into the North Gulf Coast. And otherwise, high pressure in over Canada keeps the panhandle there variably cloudy and dry, as well as much of interior Alaska looking dry, even the Arctic coast there, with maybe a little bit of a windier condition there on the eastern Arctic coast, but really not all that much. Out to the west over the Bering Sea for the Pribilofs, scattered snow showers and light southerly winds, and then several troughs rotating eastward across the Aleutians there, bringing surges of snow showers into the Fox Islands, Adak and Atka area, and again back out towards Shimia as the main low center pulls up to the northwest to the Russian coastline and weakens to about 980 millibars. And for temperatures today across the Panhandle, once again, upper 30s to mid 40s. 40 at Sitka, 39 in Juneau, Yakutat, Petersburg, and Wrangell with 43 down at Klawock. The warm spot in the state today, 45 degrees in Metlakatla. Mid to upper 30s from the North Gulf Coast, upper 20s to lower 30s for south central Alaska and the Susitna Valley. Lower 20s there in the Copper River Basin. Temperatures range from 13 at Northway to 24 at Fairbanks. Back down to 18 over at Tanana, and teens up over the Yukon and Koyukuk Valley areas. Arctic Village came in with 7, and temperatures below 0 along the Arctic coast, except for Kaktovik, which was up to 13. And then teens here over the northwest areas. Nome pushed up to 22 this afternoon, a little chillier out at Savunga with 1 degree above zero. 33 at Unalakleet and also over at Amonic with a 37-degree reading, and a little bit of rain today in the Bethel area. Otherwise mid-30s along the southwest coast. Same thing here for the Pribilofs as well as the Adak-Atka area. 31 out at Shemya, 38 in Unalaska. Lower to mid-40s here for the Alaska Peninsula with, again, 45, same as Metlakatla there at Sand Point. For the lows tonight, quite mild, mid to upper 30s here at Kodiak Island and the peninsula. Bristol Bay as well with upper 20s to lower 30s there from the Norton Sound area down across the Yukon Delta. And chilliest, coldest weather here from the Copper River Basin. Clear areas dropping possibly as low as 13 degrees below zero. Otherwise 20s and 30s there for the Panhandle, and right around zero for the North Slope and the Arctic coast. Highs for tomorrow quite mild again under southerly wind flow or southeasterly wind flow. 40s Kodiak Island, the peninsula, even Bristol Bay, mid-30s all the way up to the Seward Peninsula for the highs, and upper 20s over the northwest. Single numbers for the Arctic coast and North Slope. Coolest conditions here in the east. Flying weather, VFR, all of the southeast coast up into the interior, and then IFR showing up here and advancing to Kodiak Island, possibly the southern Kenai Peninsula tomorrow. Could be some marginal VFR into Prince William Sound. Otherwise IFR here along the coast, much of the northern Bering Sea, St. Lawrence Island, where the snow and blows going on, right up to the Bering Strait and into the Bering Sea, with passes looking like this. Anatuvik go for marginal VFR tomorrow, that slow-moving band of moisture gradually moving northward, but that should become VFR for Adigan in the afternoon. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, but the eastern approach is both possibly becoming marginal throughout the day. And again, for Rainy, that same pattern, VFR, but the eastern entrance trending down toward marginal. Windy looking VFR. Isabel stays open as well as Mentasta. Tanita VFR. Portage becoming marginal. Chilkoot White VFR. Freezing level, again, that strong southeast flow here bringing 4,000 feet up, but not quite to Kodiak Island. 2,000 feet all the way up to Norton Sound. Icing here with that front and all the moisture right along the southwest coast, Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula, right up to the Bering Strait, and possibly over the Noatak Valley areas, and also here into the Pribilof Islands. Some of that could slip on down to the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. Winds aloft showing that strong southeast flow here, ridging aloft there over southeast Alaska. 90 to 100 knot jet there, so all the systems developing down here will be sliding up to the northwest there with not much of an eastward progression over the next couple of days. 9,000 foot winds look pretty strong here, 45 to 80 knots. Kodiak Island across the Yukon Delta coastline. Lighter winds over the southeast interior, and 40 knot winds into the Pribilof Islands, with the strongest winds here staying north of the Aleutians. And for the 9,000 foot winds, pretty light here for the southeast coast and the eastern interior. Strongest here 40 to 70 knots in from Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay, in over the southwest interior. Then a break, less wind through here, picking back up again out to the west, and the Aleutians 25 to 35 out of the west. For turbulence, possible severe here, northern Bristol Bay up into possibly the Kuskokwim River area there, with moderate chop, Kodiak Island, northwestward to the Bering Strait. After the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Convective activity is popping up, or maybe there's ice in the clouds, or low ceilings. Can you get through it safely, or should you be on the ground waiting out the weather? As an instrument-rated pilot, these are questions you've got to be able to answer. Here at Dulles International Tower in the Radar Approach Control Facility, or RAPCON, there's some weather moving in right now, and that could make things interesting for our debonair crew.
1826, Julie Petrol. 0220.
How do you find out weather in the vicinity of the airport before you fly into it? You listen to ATIS, right? Well, you can also monitor approach control for a wider look at the local weather in marginal conditions.
Dulles Approach, this is US Air 1117, with you descending out of 7,000. Roger, US Air 1117.
Listen to what's happening with incoming traffic. If they're being cleared for visual approaches, there's halfway decent visibility around the airport. But there could be wind challenges associated with thunderstorms or frontal activity.
US Air 1117, expect ILS runway 1 right approach.
US Air 1117, roger.
Dulles clearance delivery, Debonair 1588 Sierra with Oscar, instruments to Bradford, Pennsylvania.
1588 Sierra cleared to Bradford via the Capital 4 departure, Martinsburg as filed, squawk code 4645.
Roger, 1588 Sierra, the Capital 4 departure to Martinsburg as filed, and 4645 on the transponder.
88 Sierra, readback is correct. Contact ground point Niner when ready to taxi.
Roger, 88 Sierra.
1588 Sierra, taxi to runway 1 left via taxiway Zulu 1, and Zulu, hold short of Alpha.
88 Sierra to runway 1 left via Zulu.
If you can deal with two frequencies at once, listening to departure control while taxiing can give you important information. Airliners do their utmost to avoid turbulence on departure, and if they're deviating, you should consider doing the same. If departure control isn't too busy, you can ask for information right after takeoff.
Dulles Tower 1588 Sierra, number 1 for departure at runway 1 left.
88 Sierra, runway 1 left, cleared for takeoff. Sierra, contact departure.
Over to departure, 88 Sierra. Dulles, departure, 1588 Sierra, climbing through 1,100 for 4,000.
1588 Sierra, radar contact, altimeter 2996.
This is the Dulles RAPCON radar room. If you're under departure control, you're being monitored in a facility like this. The screens the controllers are looking at are called Plan View Displays, or PVDs. They show the returns from a radar installation on or near the approach control's associated airport. PVDs are the controller's eyes. Most approach facilities have ASR-9 radar. ASR stands for Airport Surveillance Radar. ASR is designed for short-range coverage around an airport. Its primary purpose is tracking aircraft, but it can detect some precipitation too. And that can be a big help on days like today.
88 Sierra, climb and maintain 8,000.
88 Sierra, up to 8,000.
Every radar blip has an N number, a computer code number, an altitude, and a ground speed based on history. On these screens, controllers can see precipitation coming that's going to impact the facility. And based on what they see, they can change standard arrival and departure routes to work around the weather.
Delta 34 Heavy, when able, direct manning, then resume the Jason 2 arrival.
Ground-based radar has limitations. Among them, radar has a tough time penetrating heavy precipitation. That's because of attenuation, which leads to an incomplete radar return. What's behind the blind spot? Blue skies or tall, dark, and ugly ones? By putting together what a pilot reports seeing with what's displayed on a PVD, pilots and controllers can get a more complete picture.
Approach 88 Sierra with the request.
Go ahead, 88 Sierra.
Yeah, at some point before you hand us off to Washington Center, can you tell us if you're showing any convective activity along our route?
What's the matter? You don't like Center's radar?
Sure, but I like yours even more.
I'll sneak a peek for you before we hand off.
Why does the Debonair crew care whose radar they use? Because not all ATC radar is created equal. ASR-9, as I mentioned, was designed to track airplanes. But Approach Control's ASR-9, even with its limitations, is better at seeing weather than Center's long-range radar. And it's much more accurate in pinpointing areas of precipitation that may be associated with convective activity. Unlike more limited radar at en route centers, ASR-9 can detect 6 levels of precipitation that correspond with National Weather Service VIP for video integrator and processor levels. The higher the VIP level, the more precipitation and the greater possibility of turbulence associated with precipitation. Controllers can select any 2 levels for simultaneous viewing, so the display can be set optimally for the intensity of the activity. The lower levels are displayed as a light green area and the high levels as a brighter green. You can see the difference it makes in definition of the returns. General aviation pilots should avoid any precip area greater than level 2. Approach controllers can usually advise which levels they're painting, but remember 2 things. A level 2 shower can build to level 3 or greater within minutes. Turbulence is often encountered where no radar return is seen. When discussing radar returns, pilots can also ask the direction of movement and if the precipitation appears to be building or diminishing. The reason our pilots called approach control for a look at what's ahead is because they want as accurate a look at what's happening as possible.
At some point before you hand us off to Washington Center, can you tell us if you're showing any convective activity along our route?
And they won't be able to get that same level of definition from Center's radar. The fact is, there's a lot of information available from ATC. For example, pilot reports. This source can be extremely beneficial simply because a report of visually observed weather from an experienced pilot is going to be more accurate than that received from a radar system. When certain weather conditions exist or are forecast, controllers are required to solicit pilot reports on the weather. Pilot reports are forwarded to the local flight service station for dissemination. PIREPs are also retained near the controller's position, so the information can be given to potentially affected flights. Ask controllers for any PIREPs available for your route of flight. But rest assured, even if you don't ask, controllers will often provide general advisories of weather that could affect specific aircraft.
Baron 479er, there's an area of level 4 weather, 12 o'clock, 10 miles, 4 miles wide, moving east.
479er, can you give us vectors around the area?
479er, suggest heading of 170 degrees.
Turning to a heading of 170 degrees, 479er.
Controllers make traffic management look pretty simple, but it's a real high-wire act. And like any precision performance, flying, for example, it requires practice. All the controllers undergo recurrency training, duplicating situations of heavy traffic identical to what they see and deal with on a day like today.
Debonair 1588 Sierra, I'm showing scattered level 1 returns ahead from your 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, but no convective activity at this time. Connect Washington Center on 134.15. Have a good flight.
Winds mostly northerly, 10 to 20 knots or less here over the inside waters. Northwest winds 10 to 20 for the coast. And for Monday, for the north coast, easterly winds at 15 to 20 knots and southeast at 20 for the south coast. And then over the inside water areas, again, mostly northerly winds 10 to 15. For Prince William Sound, northeast at 10, easterlies at 15 for the North Gulf Coast. Winds increase here to gales for Kodiak Island, and Cook Inlet dropping back or becoming northeast at 15 to 20. And for Monday, winds pretty light there with the stronger gradient up here across the Barren Islands or small craft advisories, which extend into Kamishak Bay and southern Cook Inlet for 25-knot winds. And then we've got gales here for the western North Gulf Coast and 30-knot easterlies there to the east. And Prince William Sound, those winds east-northeast at 25. For Bristol Bay tomorrow, southeasterly gales, southerlies 30 to 35 knots across the peninsula with seas running 8 to 20 feet. And then much lighter winds in store for Monday here, southerlies 15 to 20 knots across the peninsula, southeast winds at 15 here from the area southwest of Kodiak Island into Bristol Bay. And out in the Aleutians for the Fox Islands, south to southwest, 25 to 35 knots for tomorrow. Westerly gales here for the central Aleutians, becoming small craft advisories back out to the west. And then the outlook for Monday, again, south to southwest, 15 to 20 knots, still small craft advisories due to the seas running 10 to 13 feet. But for the central Aleutians, southwesterlies at 20 knots, west 20 towards Chimay-Attu. Along the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, tomorrow we've got 35-knot winds, gales for St. Lawrence Island, gales for the northern Bering Sea, southeast up to 45 knots with 15-foot seas for the Pribilof Islands. And then on Monday, those turn southerly at about 25 or 20 to 25 there for St. Paul and St. George. Southern Nunivak Island, easterlies at about 20. Then brisk wind advisories there for the area north of Nunivak Island, becoming gales out of the southeast for St. Lawrence Island, and easterlies at about 30 for the northern Bering Sea. Up along the Arctic coast, south to southeast at about 10 knots from the central coast over to Demarcation Point, and northeasterlies 10 to 20 knots here for the western coast, and then brisk wind advisories from Wales to Cape Thompson. And for Monday, that expands the brisk wind advisories for the western Arctic coast all the way down to Wales, more of a southeast direction here from Kotzebue Sound out into the southeastern Chukchi Sea, and then for the central eastern Arctic coast, east to northeast, 10 to 15. And for tonight again, gradient tightening up, so the wind and snow increasing, blizzard warnings out for St. Lawrence Island to the Bering Strait coast tonight and continuing through tomorrow and tomorrow night. And got a winter weather advisory for the Yukon Delta for tonight, and then conditions improving up here over the northwest as that low weakens and pulls off to the north, but still some lingering snow here back along the Brooks Range. Fair under high pressure over the southeast interior and south central Alaska with patchy fog. And for tomorrow, that front brings a better or heavier rain into Kodiak Island with the gale force winds. Windy here with most of the moisture back down toward Bristol Bay or out along the coast, and the snow and blow continuing for St. Lawrence Island, the Bering Strait. And then for Monday, that front really weakens here across the southwest interior, but a wave coming up toward Kodiak Island. Again, that'll pick the winds up once again along the North Gulf Coast with a chance of rain into the Kenai Peninsula. Let's look at the weather.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.